Hello, welcome to Something Positive for Positive People. I'm Courtney Brain. Something Positive for Positive People is a 501c3 nonprofit organization that prioritizes just educating mostly healthcare professionals on how to minimize stigma. Over the years, we've been seeing consistently that about a third of people who are diagnosed with herpes experience suicidation or suicidality, however we want to say that, but they think about ending their lives because of their diagnosis. And this podcast itself serves as the support resource that allows people to just hear individuals intelligently and in a stigma free way talk about what it means to live with this virus. There's a lot of information out there that is inaccurate, or the language around it is choppy and it's tricky to navigate, and a lot of people really don't understand what it means. So here we just have all of the possible interpretations of what that information means and how it applies to the day-to-day lives of people who are navigating herpes stigma. We also interview sex educators, organizations that work with people under the umbrella of sexual health, as well as doctors, physicians, medical professionals, and mental health professionals as well, just to give people all of the tools that they need in order to support people who are navigating stigma. All right, couple announcements real quick, and then we'll get into it. So today's another guest. Look at me, like interviewing people again,
Mhm.
especially after that period of time where I was doing a lot of stuff for the conference, which the conference is where you'll be able to have access to this information. It's available on the website. If you go to the conferences tab, you'll be able to purchase the recording of the conference, which is 4 presentations from Dr. Evelyn Dacker on the medical side, Nikita Fernandez on the mental health side, Dakota Rampin for the sexuality education piece, and then I present the survey data from the 2023-2024 herpes stigma survey. So, yeah, I also have a disclosure workshop that is available on the website. This is something that you can rent as well. You pay and then you have access to it for a set amount of time. People have been reaching out and no one's left a review. People are using it, but ain't nobody leaving a review. Like, tell me how it went for you. Let me know how it worked, right? But yeah, that's available. And then we have a couple of events that are probably going to have passed because I interviewed a lot of people. I think this is like going to come out in 5 weeks from the recording day. So I'm sorry, y'all, if the event has passed. I know that this won't come out after September 29th, which is the Safe Sex Expo. I am organizing this with the No Shame in This Game film documentary producer, Jolene Hernandez, who is also at this point going to be one of the board members of Something Positive, Positive People. So we're working together to sort of bring the components of sex positivity and non-monogamy into the vanilla and monogamous world where people are generally a little bit curious. Like maybe they want a partner to share a fantasy or act out a fantasy with them. And we want to give them some of those tools that can support them through that without them feeling overwhelmed by just going too deep into it or working with someone who's so enthusiastic about it that it's intimidating. So we want to bring this together in a way that is like introductory level, and that's what the Safe Sex Expo is going to be. All right, we have a guest today. Allie, I'm gonna let you introduce yourself, and
Yeah.
then I want you to just share like how you came across Something Positive for Positive People, and we'll just kick off the conversation from there.
Yay, of course. So thank you so much for having me. I'm Allie Mazer, and I have a company called Beyond Herpes. So I help individuals and groups of women um, get over the stigma of their herpes diagnosis. And it's a challenge. It's been so amazing and rewarding to see these women come together and learn from each other and learn how being in community can really help them overcome the stigma within themselves and then within their relationships or whatever it is. Anyway, so I started the company a little bit about 7, 8 months ago now. And right at the beginning, I was so happy I found you and Something Positive for Positive People because it didn't seem like there was a lot of people in the space doing big things at all. And I was like, as a new business owner, I was like, okay, well, there's opportunity, but as a herpes sufferer, I was like, this is sad. Like there needs to be so much more. And when I saw what you're doing, Courtney, I was even more elated because you're tackling a very hard thing, which is the big systems, the medical community. Like, how do they help the people that are getting diagnosed? My clients come to me because they're really disappointed in how their doctor or their nurse or their NP treated them during their diagnosis. And so I come in and help them learn, help them move forward, help them prevent their future outbreaks, teach them how to date with confidence, and all the things that, and I want to note that I do have respect and I understand the medical community sometimes because herpes isn't that big of a deal, actually. They see it all the time, so they don't make time for it. It's just there's a disconnect. My dad is actually ER doctor, so I have that bug in my ear learning why they can't and don't make time for it. But I also think there needs to be some sort of shift, and there needs to be that people getting diagnosed with herpes can come to and resources they can have. So that is why I gave up my corporate job and went full into what I'm doing now and don't plan on stopping anytime soon.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for the shout out, I guess.
Yeah.
You really don't know what impact your presence has on people, but I try and work under the assumption that, you know, there's something that will be born long after I'm done with this, that maybe this was able to support somebody in getting started, right? Like, I don't know who's listening to the podcast. I don't know who's benefiting from the social media content. And I think that sense of connectedness is what drives me to continue to just be consistent. I think that that's more
Yeah.
important than getting it right. So it's nice to hear that you found this so long ago and that you were able to begin supporting people in the way that you are. So thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
All right. So, we typically talk about herpes for like 5% of the conversation. So I guess for the sake of consistency, do you want to just tell us a little bit about what happened around when you were
Yeah, yeah.
diagnosed? We'll,
And
we'll go from there.
of course, and happy to go as deep as you want. So I got herpes when I was 23. And this was over 10 years ago now. I got genital herpes. And I think I used to share so much, but I think the important points, I will share the important points. I got it within the first month of ever having sex. I was really hopeful to actually sex was really important to me. It was really sacred. I'm Christian, and I wasn't someone who was like I was a sexual person, and I was like doing other things, and I was embracing my sexuality and everything, but I did want to save sex for marriage. So it is interesting to me that I got it within the first month. I deep down do feel like there's a correlation. I think we both know how common herpes is, and that I could have been exposed to it at another time. And when this act actually happened, I really felt like I betrayed myself and my values. And it was it was really, really a challenging time in my life. So yeah, I got a horrible first outbreak, like, thought my world was over kind of thing. Um, and I knew though, from that point on, that like my faith in God really helped me to like come out of it, I think. And I knew this is not fair. People, when I learned the stats of how many people had this, I was like, there's no way I'm not going to do something to help in this world of herpes, because people should not have to suffer this much for getting a skin rash. And it just blew my mind that a genital rash that doesn't have major health implications caused me so much trauma and then depression. And then I had to go on antidepressants. And it was like a really dark time for someone who I never thought of myself as someone like that. That would be, I don't know, I guess fragile or whatever. And now I understand the stigma that comes with herpes is just so deep rooted that it can affect anyone. So yeah, so I got it. I turned my life upside down, but I kept going. Like I just kept pushing and trying to be like, whatever, it's fine, and convincing myself it was fine. But then over the years, I realized that had a deeper grip and like caused me some like health issue, like gut issues. And I see this with clients, like the anxiety of it, if it's not addressed, it can cause other issues. And so it led me on a journey of a great one that I'm very grateful for. I talk about this of refocusing on like my well-being and my health. I stopped drinking a few years after, and I love that. I know I'm interested to hear if you have experiences with that, and like it it forced not forced yeah it forced me to really take a look at how I took care of my nervous system. So I got really into meditation. Yep. And it is so proven, if you look at the science, that helping your nervous system can literally prevent your outbreaks. So I, in my practice, really go back a lot to, don't worry too much. Don't panic about every little thing you eat, or you read something online about cutting this or that, or don't eat this. And it's more like, no, let's work on it. For me, it was a journey of regulating my nervous system. I know that's like a hype word right now, but it's so true. Um, and then yeah, it took me too long to start this company, but I was living in New York. I was wanting to pay, I was living in a high cost of living situation. And um, I eventually just cut the cord with my corporate life. I did move across the country. I like realized if I'm not, it's now or never. And herpes all the while gave me the inertia to do these things, to make these big changes. So yeah, long story short, I don't regret getting it because it's now put me in a place where I can help others with it.
All right. I want
Question
to
me. Sorry,
ask
that was a
you.
lot.
No, no, that's good because I like those kinds of things. So excuse me, what I'm feeling called to unpack real quick is if I'm listening to this for the first time and I hear I'm a highly sexual, or I was still sexual or highly sexual person, and then I
Yeah.
got this the first time I had sex, I think people would be curious to know what being a highly sexual person looks like if you think that you might have gotten this before. Did I hear that right?
Yeah,
Like you
yeah. Oh, this
said,
is great. Yeah, yeah. I love talking about this. Because often people get really hung up on when did I get it? When did I get herpes? Who gave it to me? And if you don't, okay, so highly sexual. It wasn't like I just wanted to paint the picture that I wasn't this like proselytizer, like this person going around saying shaming sex, wearing long dresses, like saying, you know what I mean? Like being thinking purity, like shaming people if they weren't perfect in their purity. And that's actually a bigger conversation because I do wish sometimes our society as a whole like had some deeper values and valued sex as more sacred. So whole other thing. And for me personally, I am actually waiting for marriage now again, reborn. So yeah, oh yeah,
the way you said it was funny. I am now waiting for marriage again.
yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah. God forgive, he forgives. Oh God. But I've gone through quite a lot, and that is what I've come to, that I want to come back to a place where I save my that part of my sexuality. But prior to that, okay, so I had boyfriends in high school. I dated a lot in college, and I had oral sex, and I had guys go down on me, and I know that, HSV1 obviously you can get from oral sex, so I could have gotten it from that. I do have HSV1, so to clear it up, but genitally. Um, and there were times before I had my quote first outbreak where I did have like some irritation, some pain or burning and itching. And anyway, that wasn't the exact answer to your question, but I'll never really know. The first bad outbreak was when I had intercourse. But before that, I was actively dating on Tinder, on Hinge, looking for the one, but also engaging in lots of hot makeouts. So I do want to, yeah, just to emphasize you can get herpes without having sex. That's why too, when like people are so judgmental, I still hear it from like educated adults, like, oh, my ex-wife had herpes. God, she was probably just sleeping around a lot before she met me. And it's like, come on.
yeah. I think that what you're speaking to is a very undertold story. Um, the spaces that I occupy or that you'll see active on social media generally are people who come from like a religious background who then are like bashing their religious background and wanting, something different. And it's nice to hear that you're someone who's had the experience of being in your faith, like your faith aligns with you and you've slipped off course, but like, hey, it's okay. And I think that what I would like for us to go a little bit more into is like the dating process. Like, yeah, dating with herpes is one thing, right? But when we talk about dating and our priorities, our values, and alignment in dating, we don't really talk about how religious values play a role in that, or like what people want at a deeper core. So you're wanting to wait for marriage before you have intercourse, but other things are on the table. How is dating for you as someone who places this value on their religion? Of course, more so than your herpes diagnosis. Like, do
Yeah.
you more pushback from telling people, hey, I'm waiting till marriage, or the fact that you have herpes? Like, how do these two things play a role in your dating?
Oh, I love this question, and it's very time relevant. So, Courtney, the minute I started just really like literally changed my hinge to make it very clear, like I'm looking for a man of God who wants to build a family and like who it like will share my faith with me. Like I'm not to get all woo woo, but the universe started sending me these men that I did not even know existed. So dating was hard for a few years, especially when I was, sorry, but it was in New York. I found it very hard to meet guys who would lead. Because I'm not just looking for a guy who will go to church with me and think about something else. Like I'm looking for someone who will be the leader in faith in our family, and that's even more rare. So I have been so amazed at how like really finally like admitting to myself that's what I want. I've been scared to admit it to myself because I've been scared it doesn't exist. And then as soon as I started, like I know that sounds crazy, but dating in New York and then I was in California, atheists, guys who just thought I was like off my rocker for believing in God because also, I mean, I dated a lot of very I'm attracted to like really intelligent, smart, intellectual kind of guys that like overthink everything. So like they would just poke holes in religion. And yeah, so I that was a whole part of it. I think, but you're right, the religion thing was higher up than herpes. For me, I would love to talk about how that would come in later and it'd be like, oh, by the way, something important I want to talk about. But the religion thing, it's knowing what you want, and I know now what I want, and I actually am dating someone right now who is also wants to wait for marriage. So it is very amazing to see once you decide and put it out there, you can you can find it.
I wanted to just touch on you saying like this might sound woo woo, but dot dot dot. I think that this is like the truth. Like this is
Yeah.
the truth that our life challenges that we have, these obstacles are trying to redirect us and show us because we are spread so many different directions in our life by just life, right? We got to make money, so we need to have a job. We might need to have a second job. We might have a passion. We may want to chase a dream that we have. We also want a relationship, but we also might want to date, but we might not really want commitment. We might be emotionally unavailable. We might want to work on our therapy, right? And I use this analogy of like, I'm in yoga therapy training, and we were shown so many different things that you should do for your body. And realistically, if you were to wake up every day and have a routine of that, that would probably eat about 6 hours of your day. So, like, how do we balance that? Like, am I just going to wake up and like release the lymph in my body? Am I going to open up my joints, lengthen, do some yoga, then go to the gym, then go do cardio, go to the grocery store, prep all my food fresh, go
Full-time
hunt?
job. Full-time, that would be nuts.
So we're spread in all of these different directions, and we never really get an opportunity to be grounded, centered, and really identify what it is that we want. Like all of our media tells us what we should want. The music we listen to tells us what we should want. Commercials, I'll have a conversation and then like I'll pick up my phone and there's an ad for a thing that I was talking about that I forgot that I was even talking about. Like how else is it, right? But all that to say, like The truth in all of this is that when we can begin to just slowly disengage and allow for our awareness to come to ourselves, our own bodies, our own minds, our own sense of being, right? We can start to identify what it is we want, and with clarity identify quickly what's not that, so that we can move on. And so many people are met with things that are not what they want, that we're so used to just kind of drifting, if for lack of a better
Mhm.
word, drifting in a direction of all those things, that we have to say, no, this is what I'm choosing. And when that happens, you'd be amazed at how those obstacles that normally are thrown in your face that are not what you want begin to dissipate, and you can more clearly see what it is that you do want and walk that path.
Yeah, so beautifully said. And that's how I feel with this now. I'm almost like, and I, for a note, I'm 34, and I part of my hope is that it, like, nothing wrong. I gotta like get over the fact that I'm 34. I really want to have a lot of kids though, or at least a few. And I wish there's some times where I wish I would have like, sooner come to this core value inside of me. And so I just want to note for people listening, like, let it like let the journey take you, but also like hear these things we're talking about, and take some time to like hone in on what you want. Because if I would have listened to something like this 5 years ago, I would have had my course set a little straighter. And everything happens for a reason. So I've accepted it. But it's so beautiful that you know we're having this conversation, and hopefully it'll impact even if just one person.
Yeah, another thing, speaking to it, just because you mentioned your age, there's the internet is doing something that's very decisive or divisive between men and women, and it's sort of pitting us against each other, like women in their 30s are too old, or like men are immature and aren't ready to settle down. And there's just, again, like being pulled in so many different directions. It was when you decided that this is what I'm doing, this is what I want, this is what I'm choosing. And it took for you to have certain life experiences that activated that maturity in you, so that you can like be steadfast in, this is what I choose, right?
Yeah.
I think that a lot of people, might feel like it's too late, or maybe even be so resistant to this idea that aging is a thing, or like you're never too old. Like, one thing that I see that I'm not going to say I have a problem with. I have a problem with when people say and do things that align with one thing, but it conflicts with the thing that they actually want. My girlfriend always says that, she says, why are you practicing dentistry when you want to be a heart surgeon? Right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if you want to be in a relationship, why are you doing dating things? And the more that you do these dating things, and the more that you just like settle for your casual partner, the better you get at settling. And people don't
Mhm.
look at it that way. The more you do a thing, the better you get at that thing that you do. And then, we get to the age thing where it's like, oh, I'm still young, I'm still young, and time flies. Like,
Yep.
in my mind, I was just going off to college, worried about where I was going to go and if I was going to continue to play sports. And here I am, 17 years later, like, damn, what was I doing all that time? Even, and
Mhm.
the things that I feel like I'm supposed to be doing. So, all that just to wrap my point up. Um, the thing about time and age and the I should do this sooner, or I have time, or I'm going to do it when blank happens. No, when that thing is there that we want to choose for ourselves, like, we have to lock into that thing and
Yes.
start doing that. And the support comes after. And just to give an example, like, I hear a lot of women say, oh, I'll leave this relationship when, or I'll do better for myself when, or I'll start looking for my person when. And
Yep.
then they find themselves like very attached to somebody who's completely incapable of being the person that they say that they want. And they try and change them, and you look up 6 years later, none of the things that you wanted long term you have. And then bam, now we're kind of having this that the conversation about being concerned about, oh my God, is it too late for me to have kids, or did I make the wrong decision? So we're talking here in a way that we're hopefully empowering people to, when they see that there's a choice to be made, that they make that choice.
Yeah, and they make the choice that might be the harder choice or the one they didn't expect. I didn't expect to like want to, well, I expected to be, I'll just be really vulnerable right here and share a little, like I expected to be super successful with my company right now is doing great and but it is slowly picking up. And it is not like you see on Instagram, like I'm just racking in all the money and all the clients and my group programs are just waitlisted. Like, no, it is a good, slow process. And I did not, in my mind, I was like, I need to be making this amount of money and have my own place and be super successful before I'm in a serious relationship, or else I'll be a little stressed or something. I don't know. No, the more important thing to me, I've realized, is being in a family and a marriage and a relationship. So I'm not holding on to that vision of what I thought my life was supposed to look like anymore. And it's been really freeing.
Yeah. And thank you for sharing that too, right? Like, we have this trajectory for ourselves that we think we're supposed to do. We're supposed to make all this money and get the relationship and have the family. Like I said, there's only so many hours in a day.
Yeah.
So being able to manage all of these things, right? We look at it like there's 24 hours in the day, but there's 40, oh wait, hold on, 40 work hours, 120 hours in a work week. And then we add 48 to that, boom, 120. There's 168 hours in a week. I hope that math's right.
I don't know.
So,
I'm
yeah, like, we can do the things and split it up over time, right? Like, we don't have to only use the most of this 24 hours today dedicated to work, only to tomorrow still have to work, and then
Yeah.
continue to do that thing and be like, oh, I don't have time for a relationship. I don't have time to get to know somebody. All right, well, if you don't have time, I'm gonna go because this is important to me. I'm gonna go over here. And something that, and I'd like for you to share what your thoughts are on this too. Um, People think that relationships are a distraction. Dating can be a distraction when you're getting to know multiple people as well. But when you are in aligned dating or an
Mhm.
aligned relationship, it's actually very supportive to the other things in life that you want. Not
Uh,
just because you free up that energy from having to look for it, but because you also have this support, you have this challenge, you have this celebration from someone that you're also, mutually invested in, and you're taking the steps of putting a life together with one another.
Amen. Yes, and it is the thing that's hard is if you're not with right person or the person that's aligned, it can feel so distracting because they don't believe what you're doing is going to be great, or that what they do, you might like, disagree with the kind of company they're in. I'm not gonna lie, like I've been picky before. My parents like, you should date so and so, and I'm like, he works for XYZ, a corporation, Coca-Cola, and I'm like, I don't want to date someone that works at that company. And sorry, that doesn't mean, but um, but it is so. Once I found and yeah, I won't. It's a new relationship that I'm in right now, but it feels like it's like this permanent cheerleader, like you said, someone to celebrate wins with you. How'd that call go? Good luck with your podcast thing today. Oh my, just there's this like love, whether or not the actual quote love is there yet, there is a love and a release and a relaxingness about having someone getting your back, asking you how your work day went, that I would argue is even more enriching than just doing it all on your own and strong arming it. If and when you can find that person, so don't give up looking for it.
And when we talk about love, right? Like, let's do that for just a second, right? I love you has such an intense meaning, and it's almost like we've been conditioned to make it something that it isn't. I mentioned, the truth of our life is we choose where going to be supported by the universe in whatever that choice is that we make. And love is an emotional state. When we say I love you, I think that we receive that as pressure, as an attachment state. To be in a loving state, to be a loving person, all that you do is considered an act of love because it's coming from that healthy place. It's coming from the
Yeah.
state, I love you. I love me. I love our environment. I love the space we're in. I love our presence. I love the time we share, right? So when we talk about looking for love, I think we really should be looking for loving people, look for
Yes.
lovingness. Um, and we might be afraid to say, I love you. And yeah, I think we, maybe should be a little bit hesitant for that. Sometimes it's best not to say I love you to a person. I'm a big fan of Letting Go by David R. Hawkins, and that's one of the things that he. Oh yeah,
It's
somebody.
like my favorite. My clients, if any of my clients are listening, they're going to be like, she made me order that.
Yeah, so we have a membership tab on the Something Positive site, and I did a yoga series of 20 classes where we go through each of those chapters, and it's either yoga, meditation, all restorative. And I just took some notes and I
Oh,
spoke
that's amazing.
chapters of the book. Yeah, thank you. And just applied it to herpes stigma so that it's something that people are able to use as a way of support, especially if they don't want to read the book. But like, basically, I'll read you the book, and I
Yeah, yeah.
just a little bit of herpes jargon into it or experiences of navigating stigma. And we're actually in the process of creating a book for it, letting go of herpes and following that format of speaking to each of the emotions as it relates to a herpes diagnosis and what emotions you'd be experiencing. But all that to say, like, yeah, we fear I love you, we fear being loved, and yet like we're so drawn to loving people unless we're not very loving to ourselves. And I mean, I'll say, even if we aren't loving to ourselves, being in the gravitational pull of such a person makes us like ourselves more, right?
Yeah.
That seed becomes planted to where we generally become more loving. And yet, like, you can't. What I was wanting to say, I just wanted to give some more context first, is that someone who's like not real can't be in the company of someone who is real
Yeah.
and present, right? So, like, if you're hiding yourself, because people are generally mirrors for one another, and if there are parts of yourself that you're hiding or that you're ashamed of, that you're scared of, someone who's loving and being authentic to the world is going to bring that out of you, and you kind of have to see it. And so if you're someone who might be afraid of actually being in love, is because you may not feel worthy of that because of how you view yourself. So what are your thoughts about like love, considering, it might be too soon to say that y'all are in love, but it sounds like this is a loving person towards you.
Yes. No, I was thinking that my mind's racing the whole time because it's like, I know I was drawn to him because of how loving of a person it is, so strong almost that I'm like, I can imagine, and I'm at a point where I feel very loving. I feel like this abundance of love in my body and my heart. And so it's weird to like not think of him as someone I love. It's weird. And oh my gosh, if he like listens to this, you're like so weird. But it's like you said, love can be, it doesn't always have to be this serious commitment thing. It's like I love a friend, I love a dog, but this is weird, but I have this love in my heart for this person. And it's like when I decide to choose to like make, and we, decide together to like choose to love each other in that next level or whatever, that'll be more of a choice. But like you said, coming together initially is because we're on that, I would say, the same frequency as David Hawkins of like the same vibration of like a lot of love. And I wanted to note before I forget this, how this plays into disclosure and talking to someone, telling someone you have herpes. So I'm like curious if this is the same thing you were thinking. When I talk to my clients about telling people, the first thing we go to is like, are they dating someone where in their presence they feel compassion, not necessarily, love, like they love them or whatever, but just like, do they feel kindness and loving kindness and compassion? Because it's going to be a lot easier to talk about it if they do. And they're going to be, no matter what, whether or not the person is needs to know more or do some research or is totally okay with the herpes thing or is confused, whatever it is, if that person is also sitting in love, there I am very confident that it won't be a very negative experience. I know there's flukes. I know sometimes you can't read someone right away, but for the most part, what I've seen is, and for me personally, when I started to disclose, I was much more selective with dating men who were loving and caring. And like you said, like just real, like not covering things up, not big egos, like not, yeah. So just wanted to note that.
Oh, thank you. And I want to you said a few kind of buzzwords regarding the types of men that you date. You mentioned leading, man of faith, and then you just talked about like loving kindness. And generally, I don't think that society sees these things all in one, right? Like if we see a leader, it's like we think of someone who's forceful. When we hear about compassionate, we may think of someone who's much more feminine. When we think about a person of faith, we think that they're like controlling and abusive, right?
Yeah.
But what we're talking about in this person, we're talking about these character traits, right? To be someone of faith means consistency, it means discipline, it means integrity. When you're someone who's a leader, it means that you have a sense of clarity and direction, and you're someone who's trusted and trustworthy and respected. And then when you have that compassion and the things that we would deem more soft, I think that it allows for you to be a better leader because you can see the needs of, and when you're emotionally aware of what's happening within the people that you're leading, you can be a better leader because you can put these people into alignment within themselves in a way that they can support your leadership and guide the direction of where you all are going. So I thought that that was something worth speaking to, especially because men's emotional wellness is something that has become important to me. I cannot believe I just made that popping noise. um, men's emotional wellness has become important to me. I actually just started a second nonprofit called Self, which started out as me just like processing my emotions on a podcast. And then it was something that I was nudged in the direction of starting to demonstrate emotional maturity, awareness, and availability and intelligence in a
Yeah.
way that more men can see examples of it, and the men who are the example have a platform that they can come on to and be that example. It's kind of a way of getting these men involved. And so what you just spoke so beautifully to is something that I think is important for a lot of the people who listen to this are women. And so for women to understand that, like, the world may be saying that men who demonstrate these traits have these negative things associated with them. But what we're looking at, as we just dissected, are consistency, they're trusted and respectful and trusting, as well as that compassion. These are the things that we want to look for in our partners. If you're somebody who dates men, and you don't have to feel bad about wanting to be with a man who demonstrates these traits in the society that says, men are insert negative word, but you know that that's what you want. So my question to you is, navigating wanting that. I imagine that you probably have curated your friend group and your environments a lot to where you may not hear that men are trash rhetoric or like men are dangerous. I don't know, but you seem like someone who might have, you may not have to deal with that. I don't know. So
No.
can we talk about that?
Yeah, yeah, we can talk. It's I wish I could say, oh no, as soon as there's just so many out there that I found because of my circles. And to be honest, Courtney, I've only I feel like I've kind of scratched the surface and I know they're there and I know it's there, but it has been a challenge. Like I said earlier, like it's not like, okay, wait, I have you said something about curating. I have had to shed, yes, some friendships, even like girlfriends who were in practicing things I wasn't aligned with or didn't agree with me about certain issues because then they would introduce me to guys that weren't aligned with me. So the past, I would say 2 years has been a transition for me in my social life and my social circles. And there's been ups and downs, and there's been a lot of loneliness because I don't have a big circle. I've been popping around a lot. So I haven't found like a local church yet. And I literally just moved to Boulder from San Diego, was in Austin for a little bit. But I do firmly believe that once I,
You went to some pretty like non-South
yes, yeah,
aligned places.
I
Um,
know.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. I just needed to point that out. You talk about Austin and San Diego, New York, and now you're in Denver. And yeah, okay, go ahead. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
no, it's funny. My therapist is like, "Why are you moving to Boulder?" And I will say I'm drawn to really I love nature. I'm a big surfer, hiker, like and I'm drawn to these places that have a deep, deep connection with nature and I like guys who also like nature or whatever. But yes, it has been hard and I've put myself, I think, if someone's listening, they're where should I move? And if you're looking for this man, I don't think Austin or Boulder. I've just thrown it out there, but I do think you can be selective and smart about where you are or getting involved in a certain community or certain church. Um, and what I did was like I kind of noted to earlier on my Hinge profile, I just got really specific with what I wanted and set my radius really far. So like I'm willing to drive a few hours and the men I've matched with have been. So setting it wider and setting what you want, setting like if your certain political preferences or whatever, and just making sure, I used to be told, oh no, you're weeding out good people but it has worked for me to be really upfront about my faith on the apps, I guess. And I'm trying to think what else. And to be, yeah, it just didn't like you said too, intentional about my social circle. So gravitating and nurturing relationships with people, with women that because I think even friendships are so important because if you're friends with someone who can then introduce you to someone, that's a great way to meet people. But if you're friends with people that aren't aligned with your values, they're not going to introduce you to someone that's aligned with your values. So
I wholeheartedly agree with you. And this is such a painful process to, you know, there's a grieving process that has to happen too. Like I imagine that these are people that you might have known for a really long time too, right?
yeah, and yes, and it's such a beautiful, it's kind of a weird, beautiful thing that happens though, is you realize who your truest, deepest friends are that are gonna, and then you also, Courtney, something happened where like people come back into your life. A girlfriend that I kind of felt like we just lost touch. She had 3 kids. She's on her fourth, but her husband was very religious, very Christian, and they got married and she became really faithful. And now we have like reignited our friendship and it's so beautiful. And she's so supportive of me looking for a Christian man. And it's like, I didn't think I thought she was too busy with kids. Like, I didn't know our friendship was gonna get really strong again. And it is now. And it's like, you don't know, yeah, you don't know what's gonna happen. And I also, real quick, because I didn't answer the part about what I do see the thing about men and like about how oh they're pigs or they're if they're Christian and they must be controlling or whatever, or if they're this way they must be feminine. And I think one of the big problems is that our men in leadership right now, the men we're seeing on the news, and they're just not good examples, but they're out there, they're just doing better things for the world. We don't see them on Instagram, if that makes sense.
It does make sense, and that's really why starting Self, I want to put that on display because I talk to a lot of women through my work with Something Positive for Positive People. I'm in the world of sex positivity and sex education, and I'm a man in a predominantly women-run space, and I'm a straight man in these predominantly women-run and LGBT spaces, and I'm black and these are mostly white, right? So there's all these differences, and I just so happen to have, the most broad perspective in these areas as well. And I don't see a lot of like, yeah, there is no like pro, men, pro, black men, pro heterosexuality, right? So it oftentimes feels like I think that I've struggled with um, not belonging and wanting to just be like, all right, I don't belong here. But I'm coming into the realization that there's a necessity for someone like me to have a presence there to be able to bridge this gap between where I've come from with my upbringings and identities and to where I am now in these spaces and how I present myself. Because now, like, I've seen the other side, so to speak, the other sides,
Yeah.
from straighteness to the LGBT stuff, from monogamy to non monogamy, from black to white and other ethnicities, to where I so clearly see ways of us being able to, more so coexist and be able to build a much more beautiful world. And it's an ugly process,
It
you
is.
know.
It's, and I so resonate. I just want to say, like, I even get nervous speaking sometimes because I feel like people are going to make assumptions about me, but I've just learned, and I'm sure you have too, we absolutely have a place. Like, and there's always going to be someone listening that it resonates with. We don't realize it, but 100%. There's someone even more Christian than me that's like more like that is like, thank gosh Courtney had this girl Allie who's really like whatever on her podcast. Like it's I really think I've finally accepted just being completely open about who I am and my beliefs, and it's helping. But like you said, it can be hard. Sometimes I'll post something and I'll be like scared that I'm gonna quote lose followers, and it's like nope, it's no more fear.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I wanted to touch on the environments thing. So you mentioned, oh, the woman you're friends with who now has 4 kids, right? Isn't What's the irony of, like, that's someone who has the life that you saw for yourself now, that you lost touch with and then
Yeah.
regained connection with? Like, is there any jealousy or envy there at all?
Oh my gosh, it's such a good question. It because I think about this. It's not a jealousy. And if there was, I've kind of worked through it and prayed about it honestly, because but there it wasn't so much jealousy as just kind of confusion. Like, what did I do wrong, God? Like, and she won't mind me sharing that when we lived together in New York City. We were best friends in New York in college. We did spring break together. We partied hard. And we continued to in New York. And I would go to church on Sundays. And like most people in their 20s in New York don't, not most, but a lot of people don't go to church. I would trudge through a blizzard to go to church in the downtown or on the Upper East Side, or try a new one, try to meet men, whatever, on Sundays, hungover.
Is that why you went to church? That's not why
Oh
you went to
yeah.
church. I mean,
Well, one reason. And this my no, I couldn't get any friends to go with me, and she was one of them. And then she met her now husband, who was very Christian, didn't even live in New York at the time, and he brought her to faith. And I had to let go of what I had to let go of was like I was like it was more the jealousy of why couldn't I do that? Why didn't I help? Why didn't she want to become faithful because of me? But I'm just glad she did. So I don't care anymore. I'm just so grateful for her husband, and now that she's able to she's raising these amazing kids, and hey, it's just however God wanted it to be. So no, but I do wonder sometimes. It's funny to look back on and be like, you wouldn't have expected that based on,
yeah.
yeah,
There's this phrase that's used in the non-monogamy world called compersion, and it sounds like that is what's said as the opposite of jealousy, but like where a thing happened that you may not have, that you would want for yourself. You see someone else with it, and you're excited for them about it. And this is kind of one of those things too, where it's like, okay, there's tools, resources, language way over here that someone who's way over here would really benefit from having access to, or like we're having the same experiences. There's
yeah,
just some subtle differences in it. So yeah, all that to say, um, that our environment really play a role in what our intentions are, and our
yes.
intentions really play a role in what our environments can do for us, or what they do to us, right? Like, where you live may not have been conducive for you dating and looking for a Christian man, and you've moved and moved and moved, and you have to have stumbled into what it is that you want. But it was only after you made that choice and you set that intention. And I'm sure you, along the way, like you said, you had to shed some friends. I'm sure you've said no to people and you
Yeah.
started to even put in your dating apps like, these are the things that are important to me. And you stuck with that.
And yes, and I will say, this is kind of embarrassing, but I want to share one other thing I did. The Literally the night before I started chatting with this guy, he I got on my hands and on my knees, not my hands and knees, on my knees to pray on the side of my bed. Like I don't know if everyone who's not Christian thinks that we all do this, but we don't. We pray in different ways, but like I rarely get down on my knees on my bedside, like, with my hands in prayer position. But I did, and I picked up a book that was on my roommate's bookshelf, and it said 31 prayers for your future husband. And Courtney, I read that book out loud to God. Like I literally opened the book and was like praying for this type of man to enter my life. And all those traits we were talking about, like strong and a leader, yet compassionate and kind and soft, like those were all incorporated in these prayers. So shout out to that book if anyone wants it. Um, I can't, I just am in awe, like whether or not this guy is my actual husband in the future, reading that book, like it couldn't have just been a coincidence. It was insane. And it was kind of a cool moment in my life. Yeah.
Amazing, amazing. And I don't think that this is just gonna happen one time. The first time you're like,
I
man,
know,
let me
I know.
go.
Sometimes you have to
People
do more.
pray, and people be like, I'm gonna go pray, and then I'm gonna find that book, and they're gonna be like, why I ain't got no man yet? It was 10 minutes. Um, well, Ali, we're at close to time.
Yeah.
I want to give you the opportunity to just share how people can get in touch with you, and if there's anything else that you want to leave us with before we get off of here.
Yeah, sure. Of course, people can go to my website. I think it'll probably be in the notes. Livebeyondherpes.com. So livebeyondherpes.com. I always take intake calls. So if you want to just book a 15-minute call with me to learn about my programs, my one-on-one or my group programs, would love to hear from you. And also, I should say, because Courtney, it's so nice to talk to a man. If there's men who find me, I really want to have a program for men and women. It's just I don't have as many men reach out right now. So hasn't yet happened. That's a whole nother conversation. I think that would be really interesting to have. But that's how you can find me. And I just want to say, like, if you're listening, like you look at me speaking about this, look at Courtney, like you have hope that you can turn around your diagnosis and just completely live free from it. Like I genuinely feel like I'm sitting here talking to someone else who has moved past it, and it feels really nice to like have hope for others listening too, because I know it took a long time for me, but it happens.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Ali. This was a really beautiful podcast episode, and I'm grateful that you were able to come on here and talk about, religion, and we were able to talk about like some of this, the vanilla stuff, because I talked to a lot of people about a lot of different things, and I think that this was probably uh, the most, what's a good word for this? Like traditional buttoned
Sure,
up.
I like to think I'm traditional. I love vanilla. I love vanilla ice cream.
That fits. That fits. I think we're gonna have to throw vanilla somewhere in the title. Um, but yeah, thank you for all of your insights and sharing what you have. I hope that we were able to cover. I hope this was good because I know that the conversation wasn't so much about herpes, but that's the point. Like I want people to minimize herpes and herpes stigma and begin to prioritize what's actually important to them. And it sounds like your faith is more important to you. Your style of relationship is more important to you. So I'm very honored that I was able to facilitate this conversation with you.
Thank you. Yay, I'm excited. It's gonna be great, and I really appreciate it.
All right. Stay on for me for a few minutes after I do the outro, and we'll just check in, debrief for a bit. That concludes this episode of Something Positive for Positive People. Please like, rate, review, share, and subscribe to this podcast. You can visit www.spfpp.org for additional podcast episodes, resources on the website, upcoming events. We have our Safe Sex Expo in New York City on September 29th. This is going to be really good for anybody who might be, curious about or interested in more range in their sexual repertoire. If you're someone who might be with a partner that you want to open them up to some more kinky stuff, or if you want to expand your sexuality beyond the way that you have sex now, if there's some things you heard about, you're curious about, this would be a really good, entry point to navigating some of those conversations, how to talk about those things, some things that you can do, getting some ideas. I think that this would be phenomenal. You can visit, again, spfpp.org in order to find more of that. I think that's really it. Let me know your thoughts on the podcast episode, y'all. I'm available if you want to email me for additional stuff. We offer donation-based support calls as well if you want to talk through stigma, and if you want to connect with Allie. Allie, did you say your website name?
Yeah, live
All right,
beyond herpes.
Live Beyond Herpes. All right, .com.
Yep, yep.
LiveBeyondHerpes.com. All right, and we'll be sure to link that in the show notes. All right, y'all. Till next time.